Hello and welcome to Cult of the News, the Watch It Played news show that brings you all the board, card and tabletop news from the past 2 weeks. Why was all in air quotes? Probably best not to read into it. Sorry We Are French not only have arguably one of the best publisher names of all time, they are also reprinting Icky, which was very much at the top of the list for me of games I wished would get a reprint, as I've always wanted a copy of the original 2015 version, and honestly it pained me every time I watched an Eric Martin video on Board Game Geek as he sat there behind him, mocking me. Icky was originally crowdfunded and never got a full retail release, which makes getting a copy of it as rare as rooster's eggs, which appears to be another item mocking me from Eric's shelves. And Sorry We Are French have developed new art, improved the ergonomics, and they've made some minor rules modifications, mainly for the 2-player experience, so look out for that in mid-2021. My podcast, This Game's Broken, is sponsored by Restoration Games and as such the binding language of the legalese in the contract, forsooth, henceforth, many objections, but it has nothing to do with me wanting to talk about the new surprise Unmatched set, Little Red Riding Hood versus Beowulf. But it does mean that I have to do the next section with zero emotion, which is something women in my life have told me I'm great at. Unmatched Little Red Riding Hood vs Beowulf is the latest standalone expansion in the series following a bunch of other releases in the series this year. Little Red features a card combo mechanism, meaning that when you match icons on the cards she plays to ones in her basket, discard pile, you trigger potent effects. Meanwhile, Beowulf uses Rage to power up cards for devastating attacks. I will be buying this, alright? I have strong positive feelings about Unmatched. I want to organise a mega game with one person playing every character all on a big massive mega board. It'd be great. Game Brewer have announced Stroganov, a new game by Andreas Stedding, designer of Goo Gong and Hansa Teutonica, as well as a bunch of others. And this game just jumped out at me because look at that cover. It's really nice, right? I'm superficial enough for me to be in. Sign me up. I'm very easily manipulated. Again, something that women in my life have mentioned. The tagline says, drive your hunting party into the vast expanse of Siberia for victory. That was Russia's Wild West. It's Wild East, but it's cool. So over the 4 years, you'll be driving out east, collecting furs, I imagine getting victory points somehow before heading back each winter. There's just something about this game that I really like the look of, so I want to know more when more is announced. Cwali games have not always been the easiest to get hold of, as they are both covered in grease and live outside our regular perceived space-time, but also they've classically done smaller print runs and Kickstarter campaigns for games like Habitat, great game, Beastie Borders, great game, Factory Fun, never played it. Anyway, in order to reach a wider audience, Cwali Games are partnering up with BoardGameTables.com, who themselves have had success with their reprints and reimplementations such as Cwali and Bytes, and 5 Cwali games are set for release over the next 3 years. Habitats, Roll for the Top, Basket Boss, Power Ships, and Factory Funner. Another game I've never managed to get hold of. Also, Habitats was re-implemented to make Nova Luna, which was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres. There's some trivia for you. The more you know. Assassin's Creed Valhalla has been a hugely successful video game this year, and while not set in Japan, which is what I wanted, of course, because I'm painfully predictable, it's fair to say that it's been one of the biggest video games of the year, along with Family Feud, Takeshi's Castle, and Werewolf. But like so many games before it, amongst the adventuring and story arcs, heroes often have time for board games. And in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that game is Orlog, with dialogue that goes something like this. I need you to hunt down the man who destroyed my village. Run, adventurer, there's no time to waste. Of course, but first, would you like to play Orlog? Orlog is a dice game which has you select special powers at the start which can mix things up considerably, but the reason I'm mentioning it is that Ubisoft are working with Pure Art to release a physical version of the game. And this isn't the first time something like this has happened. You can already go and buy a copy of Gwent from the Witcher franchise, Tellstones from the world of League of Legends, and the game I spent hundreds of hours playing as a teenager, Triple Triad from Final Fantasy VIII. Give me a Blitzball game! Come on, Final Fantasy X, you cowards! No, it wasn't that popular, but I loved it. So you can play Orlog in real life sometime next year, and then it's up to you to save that village or not. With Netflix's release of The Queen's Gambit, which unfortunately wasn't Elizabeth II in a pod racer, it's a Cold Era show about an orphaned girl who becomes a chess master. I don't know, my mum loved it. But it directly caused the sale of chess sets to rise by 87%. Sales of how to play chess books rose by 600% in the US, as well as a bunch of other metrics which hit the roof, including web searches, eBay searches, and online play. Which is why they need to make a show about Trajan. Not about Trajan himself, about the game Trajan. Just people playing Trajan. Non-stop Trajan. The makers of South Park made a YouTube video to celebrate Board Game Geek's anniversary, which kind of blew my mind. Now, back on November 13th, 2019, South Park aired a full-length episode all about board gaming titled Board Girls, which included a bunch of Easter eggs about our hobby. But this isn't that. This is a new shout-out specifically for Board Game Geek's 20th anniversary. So, comparing the two is kind of like comparing apples to apples. And Asmadi Games may have suffered a massive setback, as 1,900 containers were either lost or damaged at sea on the one bulk ship. And one of those containers contained their latest Kickstarter, Good Puppers. So even if it was one of the lucky survivors, this is still going to be delaying things for them considerably. And finally, the Zenobia Awards have been launched. The Zenobia Awards are a board game design contest for underrepresented groups, and it's all about helping underrepresented people in the historical board game world break into the tabletop game industry. And according to them, if the game you're working on has an historical setting, then they want to help your voice be heard. Essentially, it's a mentorship intended to pair people with industry veterans to help game development, helping pair people with partnering publishers, as well as a contest with a cash prize. There's no cost to entry, no obligation to list the mentor as a co-designer, and designers will keep all the rights to their own game. So I thought that was pretty good news to end on, so that's what I did. And thank you so much for watching. As always, I really do appreciate it. I'm Matthew Jude, and until next time, take care.